All right, Brother Greg, you're back.
I am back,
You ready to go?
ready to go.
All right, let's jump into it.
Urban Christian Veterans provides a safe place for Christian veterans of color to discuss the challenges you face in your daily lives. Being a person of color has its challenges. Being a Christian has its challenges. Being a veteran has its challenges. All of those factors being combined makes for a unique and sometimes difficult life experience that is seldom talked about in public forums. Thank you for tuning in to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. Here's your host, D. Allen Rose.
Thank you, Aaron, for that wonderful introduction. This is D. Allen Rose, and you are listening to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast.
So, first topic that we want to discuss today, military moral injury. Are you familiar with the term?
Not too familiar with it. If you could just define it, and then we could go from there.
Okay, so military moral injury is basically when it's a psychological and emotional distress, right, that occurs when military personnel are involved in or witness events that violate their deeply held moral beliefs. So, for instance, the whole "thou shalt not kill," right? And then as part of the military, you go in and you're put in a situation where you're either ordered to or you witness someone doing that.
Okay.
And then it impacts you afterwards,
Yeah.
right? It could be either having to do it yourself, witnessing it, experiencing some form of, something that goes against your moral beliefs as part of your military duty. So, and then afterwards, it just impacts you. It's an injury that stays with you after. So I guess the question is, have you ever experienced anything like that?
Well, during my two tours, I didn't have to see initial combat. I think the closest I came was when we were moved out to our site initially. And this is during
Mm-hmm.
Desert Shield, Desert Storm, where the buildup was occurring
Mm-hmm.
around December. And I was on guard duty, and a vehicle approached. And as we've been trained, I approached the vehicle, had the driver exit the vehicle, and he was questioned. And we were drawn. I was locked and loaded. And at that time, I don't think we as military personnel had to deal with IEDs as they did subsequently afterwards. But at that point in time, I know if that gentleman had made a move, he would have caught a 5.56, but without a doubt. Without a doubt. And it so happens that after we got them back into the vehicles and they exited off, not even 10 minutes later, a um, infantry military police unit pulled up and asked us, "Have you seen this vehicle with X individuals?" They described them, and we was like, "Yeah, they were right here." We questioned them and had them move off site. And he said, "Yeah, we think they're gathering information," and then they took off after him. Now, I don't know whatever came of that, but it is what it is. But um, I think during that time, if I was brought forth to actually let off rounds, then it would have been a hesitation, because then it's a case of, protecting myself, protecting my fellow soldiers to the right and to the left of me. So I don't think it would have been any apprehension. I believe there was a gentleman, I forget which campaign, where he refused to use a weapon, and he actually was decorated for rescuing quite a few individuals because his moral code did not allow him to kill individuals. And I wish I could recall his name, but there was a movie made of this gentleman and how
Yeah, yeah. I
he
saw that movie. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, I think with me, as far as engaging in combat, it wouldn't have hurt my moral code, but doing something outside of um, an initial engagement. So, in other words, if If we would have went through, we swept the area, and say there were little kids right there, I wouldn't have just, you see in movies, they would have just killed off innocent people like that, doing something like that. Or you see guys come through and maybe raping women or something, um, you know, sinister as such. I wouldn't be involved in anything like that. But I think if it was something that happened outside of the initial combat, it'll affect you because right now people are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and having to deal with things. I still remember things from being over there. There was a young Kuwaiti girl I remember who had been evacuated to one of our combat MASH hospital who had been stabbed by an Iraqi soldier. Now she received treatment at the point of where she was, and then where I was, the MASH hospital was the main MASH hospital. So if you had severe traumas or very serious surgeries before they could evacuate you to Landstuhl, they would bring you there. So you had a lot of the serious trauma incidents occurring and being brought back there.
Mm,
Uh,
mm.
but
So let me. So this you said this girl, she received these injuries. Um, like I'm assuming first you see the injuries and then questions come. How did this happen?
yeah,
That kind of thing. Like describe that. Like how does that process work? Or
well, we ended up there at the hospital because it was almost like a humanitarian thing. This was toward the end when we had switched from Desert Shield to Storm, which was a big sweep of all the forces going in, and we were told, our command was told that there was some children up there, and just to go and lift their spirits, they bring them candy, that type of thing. I was giving them out candy because they didn't need candy. I would give them
right.
regular food, but it was to go there, lift their spirits, and for whatever reason, this young girl took to me. She wasn't interacting with anybody else, but she interacted with me for whatever reason. And I remember the first time I see her, I still see her. She was laying on the bed and, very quiet for her age. From what they said, her age was, she was very small in stature. Okay. Very small in stature compared to a healthy child that you would see in the United States or Europe or, anywhere. And I remember the scar that came down her abdomen. This is from, I guess where they went in for surgery and everything. I remember seeing this scar right there. Yeah. So, yeah, it was, and she wasn't the only one I saw. I saw on my way up north, I saw a body that was hit by one of our tank rounds where they were just burned. And at that time, if there was any type of GPS, it was like your special ops guys who had it, Delta, SEALs, Rangers, they had it. And in the desert, it's flat. There's nothing there, so you don't have any reference. So if you were going on a trip or something, you had to get back before it got dark because you had no reference there. So I remember we were making a run to Hafar, and uh, I remember coming through the city because they were bringing prisoners back in that area, and that's where they were staging prisoners. And we were going through the city, going past Hafarbad and going to King Khalid Military City, KKMC, and they had brought this truck back, and the body was still in it. And me and my partner, we jumped out to look at it. I had taken a picture when we were on the way back, but not going up. And I think we were just stunned just to see just a black burnt body. Just it's almost like it was frozen, and we knew we had to go, so we just looked at it and just kept it moving. And those things stick with you, and you think about the is it worth it? All this killing and is it really necessary? I think it's so glamorized uh, here on television, whether you're watching Full Metal Jacket or Saving Private Ryan or whatever the show is. Um, and I tell people, when you hear around, it, it ain't like TV.
Right. Right.
If a grenade lands about 20 feet from you, you catching something. It ain't no
Mhm.
falling down and getting back up and keep running. And nah, that ain't reality. That's not
Right.
reality. And I realized that. I remember the first time. You remember when we went through basic training, and you had to go
Uh-huh.
through the portion where you had to throw the grenade.
Oh man.
I remember
Yeah.
when we were in the cover bunker, and the person was downrange throwing the grenade. It was kicking sand, hitting the top of that bunker. So that stuff you see on TV is not reality. It's not reality, not at all. But to answer the question, the stuff does stay with you, and you're going to have to just temper whatever goes on in the course of war, whether you're going to do it or not. If you sign up, especially if you're in a combat arms type of MOS, which is a job function, and we're all trained to fight, but more than likely, if you're 11 Bravo or any of the 11 series, you're going to more than likely see combat action, and you're going to have to come to grips with, you know, will I be able to engage? How will I act? And I think no one can answer that question until it actually happens. Uh, but I believe if it would have come to that point, I would have engaged, because obviously I wasn't on the walk I am right now. Uh, but even if I was, you're still going to have to uh, come to grips of whether you're going to engage. And I think even people back then, whether it was World War One, Two, Korea, Vietnam, uh, who were uh, on that walk and had made a profession of faith, who were there in combat, and more than likely killed people. That's something they would have to rectify. You know, the Bible talks about David and Saul when they asked, have you heard about the thousands that Saul has killed, and then, but have you heard of the 10,000 that David has killed? So something has to be come to grips with.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, you know, how you personally reconcile something like that. One, and then two, how do you, I guess, advise someone else that may be dealing with that whole moral injury situation?
Um, Before this started, you asked me if I was going through my VA process, and I was, and I just recently had a PTSD CMP exam, and the psycho- psychiatrist, she was talking to me, and she said, "You really need to go and talk to somebody." And I said, "Well, people of my age, uh, when we came in, you and I came in around the same time. There was a perception of the health at the VA that it was subpar. Now, over the years, it has definitely gotten better, but there's still it's a matter of who you get
Ooh,
to some extent.
right.
You might get somebody who's great. You might get somebody who's just trying to pass the time and hit a checkbox. It's all on who you get. Um, and that question was asked to me, and I said I just talked to my military compadres because they understand. Maybe sometime down the road, I will make an effort to go and actually talk to somebody, but that's that's how I deal with it. I'll talk to some my old army buddies. Yeah, yeah, and that's how I reconcile with that.
Okay. So, as far as if someone came to you and said, I did this thing while I
Yeah.
was in, and uh, and it's bothering me. Maybe it's guilt, you know. whatever the case may be, what advice would you have for them?
Well, first off, I'll probably try to take them to scripture and try to find something in the word to read to them. And even though I haven't done this, I would more than likely try to solicit information from people that I know who have gone and talked to somebody and try to gain the results that they have received. And if those results were favorable, then what I would suggest to that individual is, hey, maybe you need to contact this particular person and go and talk to them and see if you can gain that same type of results. Yeah, I think
Awesome. Yeah.
it's not that I'm against uh, you talking to somebody, because in the last probably 10 years, the term of mental health has been a big issue, and especially with African Americans. I think it's a big thing. There's a brother out of Detroit named Jason Wilson, and he wrote a book called Cry Like a Man, and I would recommend that every brother read that book. It's a very powerful book. It's a quick read. When I read that book, I hadn't read a book in I don't know how many years, and I finished that book in a day and a half. Very quick read. Uh,
Yeah, I'm glad you recommended it to me, man.
yeah,
When you did last time,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
did read it, and yeah, I recommend it as well.
yeah. So it's a great book. Uh, there's a lot of things uh, we as brothers we deal with, whether it's from your childhood and how you grew up, and the traumas of parents and possibly grandparents, which is passed down. And I think sometimes you may need to have those conversations to break a cycle, so that the next generation doesn't have to deal with some of the things that they dealt
Okay, okay. Well, as you go through your VA, um, I guess journey, trying to get trying to get achieve the goal there, which is the compensation you deserve.
with. Correct.
One of the things if you haven't already experienced, is, and this is just an observation, it's a little bit off topic, but I find that the VA treatment for us is what I would call culturally tone deaf. It does not accommodate or account for what you just said, things that we grew up with, we experienced, or have learned culturally.
And let me
And
add to that,
mhm,
the medical community in general.
mm,
I would ask that. And when I say that, I'm speaking from experience.
okay, okay,
So, yeah, I would agree 100% with your statement about the VA. Yes, most
hmm,
definitely. But I think the medical facility community in general.
hmm,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And in terms of, you know, the topic of moral injury, specifically military moral injury, again, the VA recognizes it. The VA recognizes that it is an issue. The treatment, however, is one I think, just from experience, does not accommodate our culture.
okay,
And in fact, again, you know, you have yet to go. I don't want to taint your view, but as you go through it, you may notice, like I personally here in Atlanta, I went through the trauma recovery program.
okay,
Um, Personally, again, I don't want to knock it, but I thought it did more harm than good,
okay,
because, just to, and this is not about me, but since we're talking about it, I'll just say very quickly that my experience was that there were several times when the facilitator, who I assume, mental health professional, to what degree, I don't know, psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor, don't know, would be leading a session and say, they give you these scenarios and ask you how you would respond. How do you think you should, respond in this situation? What do you think should happen? How should you feel? And time again, those of us in the room who looked like me, who looked like us, seemed to be getting the answers wrong. And after a while, you know how it is. You start looking around the room like, really? You
Yeah.
make that eye contact, like, like, how's, nah, and finally someone spoke up and said, no, not where we grew up, not
Yeah.
where I grew up, kind of thing. That's not how we think of that or respond to that or
Yeah.
what have you. And so,
Yeah. There are cultural differences.
right,
Yeah.
but the suggested way of thinking that came to us leaned towards a culture that was not ours.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happens in other classes or sessions or what have you, but the one we were in, someone spoke up. And so it just makes me think about the thousands
Yeah.
of soldiers or veterans that go through that and that are just forced to accept, this is your treatment. This is how you ought to think about this. Have a nice day. Stamp. You made it through,
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I just thought I would toss that out
Yeah.
there, man. It's just something to think about. So you may recognize that as you move forward
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
your journey. So, okay. So, the next topic, current events, man. Uh, current events. So current event right now, the new Trump administration, I say new because he's not even been there but a few weeks,
Yes.
is dominating the news cycles. But even before we get to Trump and the administration, in your opinion, how do you think Biden will be remembered before we slide into, the new administration?
As the saying goes, history will tell. At this point in time, with all of the years of government service he's had, whether you agree with everything he did or disagreed, um, I think the lasting impression right now is that a elderly man whose facilities had waned and for the good of the party refused to step aside earlier,
Mm,
because I remember having this, and this is not anything on anyone's age, because my father-in-law, God willing, will turn 95 on the 11th. And he has some health issues right now, hearing, whatever. But his mind is still sharp. Okay, it's still sharp. And I've talked with all the people. My mom is 79. My uncle's 80. They're sharp. My mom will go out and walk 3.5, 4 miles. Mine's still sharp. Um, so I think currently it would be a elderly man whose facilities had decreased and should have more than likely stepped away prior to when he did. And I remember when he was elected, me and my sons maybe jokingly said, I hope he makes it to inauguration. And this was back then.
right,
We were
right.
like, man, I hope, because we didn't know what happens if someone who's been elected, if you don't make it to the inauguration. And
Hmm.
we joked about it, but we saw that you could look at him. His facilities started to wane.
Mm. Right.
Yeah, so that's where I think it stands now. It may change in the future, uh, but I think that's where it stands right now.
So moving forward to the current administration and everything that's happening, do you think Biden will catch some of the blame?
Uh, I'm a person. I blame everyone on Capitol Hill, and,
Mm.
and let me explain to you where I'm going with this. And I've been saying
Okay.
this. This is not Monday morning quarterback. If I was to bring my family up in here, I've been talking about this for a long time. There's only two people I give a pass to. Two. That young girl under the Trump administration who came forward, I forget her name, and her friend who came to back her. She was the first one who came out, 22-year-old, and gave her testimony, what she saw. Okay. Her and her friend. Those are the only two people I give a pass to. I'm glad Liz Cheney and everybody else on that committee came forward and they did what was right. Okay. I mean, obviously you should do what was right. Okay.
Okay.
But everyone knew what it was. Okay. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I look at things from a different eye. I pick things out. I look at your history. So let me break down the history. The things that were done as far as with his renting. We know about the Central Park Five.
Right. Right.
Okay. He had, um, with the fee for service schools that he did, the there
So the
there
history. So he's done a bunch of.
yeah, his bankruptcy, I think he's had six. And right now, if I want to go out and get a loan, I feel, because of where my credit is, I could go to any financial institution and get a loan if I wanted to. That's within my means. He could not get a loan from any U.S. financial institution. Let me say that again. Suppose a billionaire, and at that time, maybe a high multimillionaire, could not receive any financial backing from any U.S. institution. And the institution that finally gave him backing was Deutsche Bank, which has been riddled with penalties for the last 10, 15 years. So you have that. If you recall, when he was elected the first time, there was about, I believe, 20 individuals that when the security clearance background checks came back, it came back with a hard no. A hard no. And you and
Okay.
I, because where we went to school, we both had security clearance. I've had a security clearance more of my life than I have not. And that's from
Mm.
secret all the way up to top secret with identifiers after that. Okay.
Okay.
So I've held a security clearance more of my life than I have not. So that. And then I look at the people around him, how many people got convicted something, of something, and had to be pardoned. You look at whether it was what they say white collar crimes, there were crimes. The people around him that he's bringing into office or on a Supreme Court, there's um, sexual discrepancies around these people. You, as a father, if your child you find is hanging with a person who has sexual discrepancies, other people that are getting in trouble, getting pulled over by the police, and this and that, you're going to step in as a father and say, no, I don't want you around these folks. So I'm looking at all these things going on, and it brings that saying, birds of a feather flock together. you know um and There was a quote by Nikita Khrushchev, I think in the late 50s, who said, "We will take down the U.S. without firing one shot." And there was a KGB agent back in, I think, '84, who defected, and he said, "We are going through what is called ideological subversion." And part of that first step is that even though the information out there, you can find the facts about it, you can lie and put disinformation out there, and people, they're not going to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to believe the disinformation. And that first step of that ideological subversion, that's something go and read about it. Ideological subversion,
Okay.
and what it is. And I think that's, matter of fact, we're past this stage, we're into the next stage.
Mm.
Because if you watch the debate, if he came on the TV and I'm debating, I'm saying, hey, they're eating cats and dogs and there's no evidence of that. Everybody's saying it's not happening. Hey, they're eating
Mm-hmm.
cats and dogs. And people are like, yeah, yeah, he said it. They're eating cats and dogs. Yeah. Hey, he says the moon is made of cheese. It really
Right.
is. And people's like, well, he said it. The moon is made of cheese. And if he said it, it is. So my thing with all of this, number one, control what you could control. Um, there's a saying, the eye is a window to the soul, and it's almost based on scripture, but it's not really stated that way. It's like the light of the body is the eye. That's the first part of that verse. The light of the body is the eye. So whatever you're bringing in, that's affecting you. I heard this brother on social media. He says your five senses affect you, whether it's what you're bringing through your eyes, your smell, your hearing, what you're listening to, the music that you're listening to, the things that you online looking at. All of that affects you. So you have to temper that. Not saying be unaware of what's going on, but you have to temper the foolishness and control what you could control. This is a perfect example. I heard a brother say you should have different streams of income always coming in. And I do, not to the point where I would be very comfortable, and I'm working on that. But this is a perfect reminder that, we should be talking to our kids. Hey, as you move through this world, make sure you're having different streams of income. You might have your regular job, but hey, get some real estate, get some rental properties, um, do some trading in the stock market. Always have different things going, because this is ridiculous. I could tell you right now, um, the public, you're not getting the whole story. It,
Mm.
it is it is far worse than what is being put out. It's far worse than what's being put out. Yeah, a wrathful man stirreth up strife. During the build up to even to the election, I think you had a a individual who was very, he felt he was very highly slighted by the public. It started from the previous administration where he was impeached twice, and then everyone bringing charges against him and getting him convicted. And I give him this one thing: he said what he was going to do, and he's doing it. A lot of people did not believe him, but when you get an individual who can be petty, who can be vengeful, who wants to get his get back, this is what you have. This is what you have. when you slight someone, sometimes, especially when you a person who is very prideful and feel that they're always the center of attention when they walk into a room, and you can cut at them and you can get people to laugh at them. Yeah, they're going to want to get their get back, and he's getting his get back. It's a perfect example of almost like blitzkrieg, lightning war. There, you're getting hit with everything from each direction. Or think about it of a great boxing match, and you walk in there and say you walk into the ring with Mike Tyson at his height, and he has you on the ropes, and your corner is yelling counter, counter, cover up, counter, counter, but you just getting it. He just giving it to you, and ain't nothing you could do about it. That's what we're in right now. We're against the ropes. We're trying to cover up, but we taking shots left and right.
So what do you say, man, about, I mean, everything you just said, right? What do you say to the diehards that just are like, I'm with them?
Oh, okay. Well, in any organization, you're going to have shortcomings of individuals or people. We used to call in the military people who like to sham. Okay, they like to get over. In any organization, I could go to any organization, university, wherever, and you're going to find that in every organization. But for the most part, most government workers, they do what they're supposed to do. For the most part, they do what they're supposed to do. What you need to be looking at are those individuals over those committees that's over those agencies, because the people know what the work has to be done. But anytime you have a change in administration, they're going to bring in their ideology, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
switch. And the worker bees, we just doing what we're instructed to do, because this is the vision of the new administration. This is the direction we have to move into. So for the
Mm-hmm.
people who are saying, yeah, we need to do that, of course we need to streamline things. That's in any business. You can always find ways to better what you're doing. So that aspect of it is not incorrect, but the way that you're going about it is very much incorrect. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of people, they might say that because they're not getting affected yet,
Mm-hmm.
but stand by, because
Mm.
your mom or your grandma or somebody, if they start messing with Social Security or some type of aid or something, then you might get affected then. So be careful. Be careful when who you perceive as your enemy is down and you start to laugh at them.
Mm.
Lest God
Wow.
see that and turn that on you. Be very careful.
So the, I guess the move to end all of the all of the government DEI programs and any references to them. What are your thoughts on that?
It ain't affecting us. And when I say us, you know what I mean. I'm talking the people. Because we could go back to affirmative action, and the studies show this. Number one, white female.
Uh-huh.
Then you have Latino, white males, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ community, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's us. But I
Yeah, I
think
think
when
we're number 6.
DEI, yeah, depending on the list, I've heard from fifth to seventh, but
Right,
we
right.
definitely not at the top. So even to affirmative action, again, the people who actually benefited more were white females, because females are a minority.
Mm-hmm.
And these are programs geared toward minorities, not black folks, just black folks. And I think when everybody says DEI, the first image is black people. I'll give you an example. If you're familiar with the last few years, the Asian community brought lawsuits because they felt that not enough of them were getting into the Ivy League schools. But I saw a
Mm-hmm.
report, I think Yale, Harvard, and I believe the other one was Princeton, where the black acceptance rate for the past year was just about the same. I think Yale was probably 0.2% lower, but the other schools was just about the same. The acceptance rate for the Asians had actually dropped. So instead of, I think the report said instead of going against affirmative action, it shouldn't have been affirmative action because there was legacy people whose parents or grandparents had gone to the school and they gave them a up to come into the school. That was the higher percentage of people actually coming getting into the school because of that legacy benefit. But with I think with us, you look back at our history, we're gonna keep doing what we need to do. We always feel we have to do twice as much, three times as much to get some type of benefit, the same benefit. We're going to constantly do what we need to do. So we're not going to stop. So whether you take this program away or that program away, if you're responsible, you're going to still teach your children about Black history. Anytime our boys was coming up and they had to do a report, we always picked some person in Black history for them to do the report on. So that if they were one of a few in the class, they were educating the students on this history. And I ain't talking, it wasn't just Martin or Banneker or anything. We pick somebody that you would not even really hear about for them to do a
Mm-hmm.
report on, you know.
No, and I think that's awesome. And I think, in addition, one of the questions I have is, why is it that, in terms of history, why do people from our community hold these Ivy League schools in such high regard? Like, what is the draw to an Ivy League school, specifically from an historical perspective?
Can
Because if you know how they started,
Yeah,
my question is, would you still be clamoring to get into this school knowing how it started?
it's conditioning.
Mm,
Uh, think about the ugly doll test that comes
mm-hmm,
up about every 20 years and the results are still the same. It's
mm-hmm,
conditioning. It's what's put out there. Light is right, black is bad. It's all conditioning. It's opening up doors. I could tell you, my boys never wanted for anything, but
mm-hmm,
the connections they've made through their schools. My youngest went to Southern Cal. My oldest went to Vanderbilt. Those connections I couldn't give them.
okay.
And I'm sure if you go to Harvard or Yale, the opportunities, and when I say opportunities in business and networking, because young people realize once you get into school, and yes, you have your degree and everything, and you start to move up, then it's not about what you know, it's who you know. It's those relationships, it's those connections, and some of those schools hold high connections. If you're moving into the business world, like say if you're investment banking, consulting, then those schools, they have the connections to help you move up. So it's to answer your question, it's all about conditioning. Not saying you can't go to a Morehouse or a Howard University, HU, you know, or Hampton or FAMU or Grambling or Jackson State. That you can't make it out of there because there's a lot of people who've gone through those schools. One of Donovan's friends, he went to school with at SC. His father went to Morehouse, and he owns his own private equity firm. So
Mm-hmm,
it's not saying you can't do it, but I think we probably feel that if we can go through those schools and that resume comes across someone's desk and they see the Harvard or Yale or Penn, it's going to be
mm-hmm.
a easier move to get going. But I'm at the
Okay.
point where I think if these folks continue to double down and triple down. And I thought we were going to actually see it. Let me preface what I'm about to say with this. I think we all, it has been proven in society and business that when you get people from different facets of life, cultures, and you bring them together, that you create an environment, a company that will excel exceedingly more if you do that. But with that said, my brother-in-law many years ago said to me that uh, the ending of segregation hurt black people. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and at that time, I was like, man, what are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. Come on, man, what are you talking about? But in my years of living now and studying and understanding what his main point was, to summarize it, it was like when we had to go to each other. If Brother Rose, if you were a tailor and I needed something tailored, I would come to you. That's building your business. And I will always come to you. If
Mm-hmm.
I was a mechanic and you needed your car fixed and I had to come here, then you'll build me. And we're recirculating those dollars within our community.
Right.
And it was making us strong. We all know about Tulsa, Oklahoma, but there was more than Tulsa,
Right.
where there were many cities of black folk who were striving. And you remember when I've always had this thought from the late 70s going all the way into early 2000s. I'll use this example. The University of Miami has placed the most players into the NFL
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the talent pool was coming from that dividing line, which Schellenberger uh, took from Orlando going to Tampa south. And those guys, they recruited heavily to go to the University of Miami. Now think, what if all of that talent had gone to, say, Grambling or Southern or Howard University or Hampton or Alabama State? Pick your HBCU. Imagine if that talent was either concentrated at one of those schools or distributed amongst the schools where those HBCUs, because usually the primary white institutions, they're earning between 20 to $50 million a year because of athletics. So instead of in these national championship games, instead of seeing the Alabamas and the Georgias and whoever, then you would have been seeing some of these other schools. And I don't know.
Well, I think though, what so wouldn't that same argument be made that you made a minute ago regarding the connections?
Yeah, but you see, I think what happens at HBCUs, we don't have the resources.
Mm-hmm.
When my boys were going to school, I remember touring Alabama because obviously at that time we were living in Alabama, and their dorms that were, let's say, 5 years old look way better than some of the dorms if you went to HBCU. I mean, and they still look new. The alumni, I think she was from General Dynamics. I believe it was General Dynamics or Lockheed. I can't remember. She had given the school like $15 million. HBC, we're not, HBCUs aren't getting money in like that. If you go on the university, and I'm not picking on Alabama, I'm just using that as an example. If you go onto that campus, it's a beautiful campus. If you go into any of the facilities, it's awesome. Well, with services, uh, finances bring services. And I try to point this out to my sons. I would be driving around and we'll go through a more affluent neighborhood. I said, look what you see here. Look at the walk paths. Look at the shops that you have. when you go into certain stores, look at what you have. Then, when we going to get the haircut and we going into the hood, I said, now
Mhm.
look what you have. Cash, those quick cash places, liquor stores, fast food joints, because they don't have the resources to come forth. I noticed during COVID, I'm online and people saying, man, we ain't getting stuff. And I walked in this store. I don't know if y'all have this store called Sprouts. It's like
Yeah,
yeah,
like a farmer's market type.
farmer's market
Yeah.
thing. And the regular grocery stores you walked in there, it was their shelves were bare. And I was like, man. So I said, I was coming from Costco, my Costco run, because I was the only one going out during that time getting stuff. And I stepped in Sprouts. Man, do you know when I walked in that door, I looked to the back, all the greens and the vegetables, everything was loaded up. All the shelves were packed because it's in a place called Colleyville, Texas right now. So Colleyville, it has money. It's South Lake, Colleyville, Grapevine. These places have money. So I
Mhm.
walked in. I said, look at this here. I'll say this. A lot of people complain about egg prices. Because I believe I'm in a red state, I walk into the Brookshires. Yeah, the prices are a little elevated, but I guarantee you, I ain't been paying no prices that I seen on TV. That's for sure.
Mm.
That is for sure. So,
Sprouts, look, Sprouts even smells different when you walk
yeah,
in, man.
yeah,
It smells fresh. Like,
fresh. It's totally different, man. So I tried to explain to them, hey, when you have when you're at a financial level, you get different type of services, and this is what you're seeing right now. Just about everybody in this cabinet are billionaires, except for I think three individuals,
mm.
and uh, a lot of the things going on. They're going to appease to their base, which is that class of people. We're not in the same class.
So the Elon and his chainsaw, right? Like just cutting and firing all these federal employees. Like I saw some stat today. 30% of all federal employees are veterans.
Hmm.
And so in the last 6 weeks, he's fired more veterans than anyone in history, any president previously in history. So what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, you better be careful. It might get uncomfortable for him to walk around now. But I'm kidding. But I'm really not kidding, because a lot of these we've been at war since Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Guys have done multiple tours in Afghanistan, Iraq, and veterans count on their benefits more than likely they count on their jobs to support. And you might get guys who might be walking a tightrope. Uh, and I'm not trying to bring any disparage or anything on anybody, but be careful, because you got guys who are very experienced in combat, who are on a bubble, and it's a shame, man. Most veterans, they come in there, they trying to do their work, they trying to live, man. They're trying to live.
Now think about that's already been done. Now the pending 80,000
Yeah,
from the VA by August or something. You know,
it's that's a lot of people, man. And I know veterans complain about certain services, as far as especially on the benefit side, and if you cut that and you're already having issues, now you're creating a kettle that's about to blow. um, a lot of the firings, maybe not hearing, some people had to be brought back. There was a lady who had to be brought back, a high high-ranking person over, I forget the agency, but a judge ruled she had to be brought back. The nuclear regulatory agency, you saw folks who were removed and had to be brought back. So there's no um, particular rhyme or reason how they're doing this. It's just like, I don't know, let's remove all these people because there's been no uh, information put out there that shows, okay, this is why we release all these people. Here's the cost savings. None of
Hmm.
that has been done.
Wow.
None of that has been shown. It's almost like it's willy-nilly. It's just like when he went into X and fired all those people and it was an uproar. He had to end up doing what? Bringing them back. The platform they lost how many billions of dollars when that happened. And I think what's happening here, you're going to go ahead and you're going to create such a disruption. You hear about a lot of the buildings possibly being sold. I would say, look at who's buying the buildings,
Right.
because then if you get voted out and you got to come back and try to get those buildings, then you're going to have a bunch of we're going to have court cases for the next 3 years. There's going to be people sued. And I believe most of the workers that have been fired, I think they're going to win in court. It's going to take some time, but I believe they're going to win in court because there's no cause, and you'll have to prove why they were removed and your so-called cost savings, and you probably won't be able to show that. So you're not going to be really saving the public any money because now you're going to have to back pay all those people, probably paying money on top of that for suffering or whatever else is
But
going
do
to
you
be.
think they'll win though, given that a lot of the courts are
Um,
friendly
um,
to the administration?
I believe most of the cases will win.
Okay.
I believe most of the cases will win. If they don't, uh, I think everyone in Congress needs to look at this, and this is something I've thought of for many years. It's a few things. It's three, maybe four things that needs to occur. I believe they need to add to the criteria for president. You cannot be a convicted felon.
Ooh.
Number one. I need that needs to be added because you know we grew up in the DMV. You knew of guys who, for whatever reason did something, and rightfully so they had to pay the time. He has
Oh,
34
so
convictions.
he's a
He's
convicted
a
felon.
convicted felon. He just was not. I do not know the legal terminology that the judge used, but the the point is he chose not to have him serve any jail time.
Right. He was never sentenced,
Yes, to
and
any
they were
time.
waiting until after
Oh,
the
but it's on his
election.
record. So I say that is that you got some guys who can't even get a job, regular office work, trying to better themselves
Right.
because they did
Right.
something in their youth because they have a felony, and you have a gentleman with over 34 convictions, a,
34.
a
Yeah.
sexual. I don't know. They didn't say sexual assault, but there's some type of sexual innuendo that he was found in, and he's holding the highest position probably in the world as it stands right now. So that's number one. You cannot be a convicted felon. Number one. Number two, I believe there should be limits on the time you can serve in Congress. Because maybe if there's limits, it'll force people to do what they're supposed to do. That's number two. Number three, I believe there should be limits on the time you serve on the Supreme Court, 20, 25 years, and rotate them out. I don't think it should be a lifetime appointment. So,
Mm.
and number four,
Okay.
the Supreme Court ruled on this that it allowed all these companies to be given money, these PACs, these super PACs. I think
Mm-hmm.
they need to do away with all of that. And if you're going to get contributions, let it come from the individual people. And that'll
Mm.
force the politicians to really hit the ground and really go and see the people and
Okay.
take out these business interests. And we could even add another one, the fifth one, get rid of lobbyists.
Ooh.
That will really force politicians to do their due diligence. So, number one, you cannot be a convicted felon and hold
Okay.
the highest office of president. Number two, it should be time limits put on the people who serve in Congress. Number three, the people who serve on the Supreme Court. Number four, get rid of these super PACs and PACs.
Mm-hmm.
Take away what these companies giving money to these politicians on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly number five, the lobbyists.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So this possible elimination of the Department of Education, right? So I'm reading that the Education Secretary, I think her name is Linda McMahon, has a mandate from Trump to close it down, and Trump wants to return the power of education over to the states, but at the same time, trying to put new diversity program requirements on any school receiving funds, right? So it's like he's wanting to shut down the Department of Education, but then any school that steps out of line, you don't get funding either, right? In this at the state level.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the Department of Education going away?
Um, I don't believe it should go away, but I think it needs to be fleeced.
Okay.
I think we need to, I'm a big person of, like, if I see somebody doing something and it's really working, I'm gonna try to mimic that. I believe I ain't
Mm-hmm.
gonna work harder. You know what I'm saying? When you look at Sweden, Denmark, pick pick a country, Singapore, Japan, how they're teaching, maybe we need to look at that a little closer and
Mm-hmm.
try to mimic that. I looked at a study many years ago. They took some top students from Europe. They took some top students from Northern Virginia, the cream of the crop, and they gave them a test. All the kids from Europe got over 90. The highest was an Indian kid from India, Indian heritage. He scored the highest. He got a 64.
Mm.
Now, Northern
Mm.
Virginia, I'm talking like Fairfax, Fairfax County,
Right, right,
uh, Leesburg, those are cream crop. Montgomery County, Maryland, always been, those
right, right,
counties.
right.
64. So maybe we need to look at what's going on. There was this, I was looking at the news, and there was this lady, this was in Kentucky, and she voted for Trump. And she said, well, if he does these cuts, we're going to hurt. I'm going to have to fire this superintendent. I'm going to have to fire teachers and cut programs. Well, you cut your nose to spite your face. Did you not
Right,
think you would be affected?
right.
And a lot of people talk about vouchers and this and that, but they don't say, well, you can have this money to go to the school of your choice. Okay, how are some of these kids in the city going to get to these locations? Are they going to have money to have lunch? And this is something I learned when I was in Alabama. A lot of these kids that are going to these schools, their only meal for the day is that lunch that they get at school. And I did not know that.
Oh yeah,
And I
yeah.
found out that's the only meal some of these kids are receiving. a lot of people, if you're at a certain status level, you have no idea what's going on, and you're only speaking from what you see around you because that's your exposure. A great way to see people's exposures, look at their Facebook friends. Just scroll through your Facebook friends. If you don't see any diversity there, then maybe you need to take a look at yourself.
Mm, okay.
You know,
Okay. Right on. So, so what about the mass deportation of just effort? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm just sitting back chilling, watching the whole. Tried to tell you, man.
Okay.
No, but
Okay.
seriously, all jokes aside,
Uh
um, number one, if you look at where a lot of the deportations are happening, there are a
hmm
lot of blue states. Not saying it's not happening in red, but the
Right.
predominant of it is in the blue states. So it's like,
Okay.
a guy who's felt he's slighted, he's going to hit back at you. You know, California just experienced this. Just a segue. Experience wildfires and flooding, and I don't know if those funds to California are moving at a swift pace.
Got
You
you.
know,
Understood.
uh,
Right.
so it's unfortunate. I believe if you are coming from another country and we hear the saying we are a country of immigrants, which we are,
hmm
and you are coming here to really try to work hard, because most people coming from here from outside of the United States, they just looking for opportunity. They truly are. And they're going to
Right.
come and work. Yeah, yes, there is a criminal element that, you know, gets in as well. But most people are really just trying here to make a better life for themselves. I have family who came here from South America. I have family from other parts of the islands who came here. And when you look at my family, we have a whole, on both sides, my mother and father's side, we have a lot of educators and we have
hmm
a lot of medical folks. So it's not like people came here and slouched,
Right.
but for the most part, a lot of people are trying to make a way for themselves. Now, for those who thought they were going to do better by 4-7, there's a saying: you reap what you sow.
Right.
You reap what you sow, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So
So do you you do reap what you sow. Um, if you had the opportunity to talk to someone who perhaps did vote for the current administration, but is now at a Democratic town hall saying, "What are you going to do for us?" What would you say to that person?
I say, go stand in the corner. Look,
Okay.
it goes back to what I said at the beginning. There's only two people I give a pass to. Everybody, Democrats and Republicans on that hill, some of them are lawyers.
Uh huh.
You saw this coming. They gave you a playbook
hmm
for what was coming.
Right.
And you should have prepared. And instead of trying to play political lines, y'all really should have did some legislating, because maybe this is an eye opener. And I'm speaking of Democrats and Republicans, maybe for the kids that don't want to work and legislate, put them in a corner, don't give them a voice, and y'all do what needs to be done. Because you can't be crying about spilled milk, and you were told this. How many videos you seen about people You go and talk to them and said, well, Trump is going to do this. Well, yeah, he said he was going to do this, but this is what he actually did, and they don't have no recourse for that. You're giving them the truth, but they ain't trying to hear it for whatever reason. For whatever reason, and um, I don't want to see bad on anybody because I ain't messing up my blessings for nothing. I ain't
Right.
I ain't
Right.
laughing at nobody. I'm just sitting back and I'm in observe mode. I'm just
Right.
observing. I'm not. I would say to that person, man, hey,
Well, no, man. The thing is, I agree with you, right? In terms of you don't want to see bad on anyone. However, sometimes the uh, the bad is the only message they receive, right?
it's just like if you've talked to your children and
Hmm.
you've told them time and time again. And I think the perfect example: don't touch that stove. It's hot.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
don't Hey, don't touch that stove. It's hot. All
Right.
right, you keep on now, and they keep on, and then they get burned. Now you gonna come? All right, come here. Let me fix this. And they might hear it, but you're gonna take care of them. But we told you don't touch the stove.
Yeah, and I think that it's I I'm chiming in on this particular point because it's like you said, right? In terms of the diversity, if Facebook, I think a pretty diverse, you know, um, list of quote unquote friends, whatever. Um, and I see I see what they say, and some are die hard. And my thing is, I don't engage, right? I just
Neither do I.
observe.
I observe.
Yeah, I don't engage. I just observe. But as I'm observing, I am like, I've come to the conclusion that you won't see another way until it impacts you,
Yeah.
right? You won't see another way until it impacts you. And some are so diehard that they will literally, I just can imagine them saying what they're saying in the unemployment line, right? They will be saying what they're saying at the food pantry as they're, receiving free food.
This is
They will
Obama's fault.
continue.
Obama
Right,
did
right,
it. This is his fault.
right. They will continue to say what they're saying. And it's not until, and it's not just that, right? There's plenty of examples of just people in general being hard headed until they go through something that allows them to see things from a different perspective, is all I'm saying,
Yeah.
because,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I don't wish it, but,
Yeah. It's
you know,
this D Rose, man. This is just a mess. So to keep one thing, especially both of us are over 50, I try to keep my peace. That
right,
is very paramount to me. I don't like arguments. I don't like unrest. I just like my peace.
right, right,
And I understand as I've I heard this from a older gentleman when I was younger, and I didn't really understand it, but now I understand it. I just want my peace.
right,
So to keep my peace, again, your senses affect you. So I stay aware, but I'm still moving, brother. I'm controlling what I can control. I'm trying to take care of this over on this side. I'm trying to get this in place. Because I told my son the other day, he's home here because he had surgery 2 weeks ago to do
hmm
some bone spurs on his hip. So we had him have the surgery here so we could take care of him. And I said, you know what? Both of you are doing well in your jobs in society. You graduated college, you did what you're supposed to do. But I feel as your father, I'm still the foundation to steady right now to ensure that you guys are on your way. Because, right now, if something happens, mom and I can step in, help out, you know. So
Right.
we are the steady. And I just to let you know, I was on my way of preparing for my next step. I had started that process. I got 24 months left. You know,
Okay.
and then all this stuff started happening. You know, so I was like, Greg, you sleeping? Because I was actually trying to do a defer retirement myself because of an
Mm,
opportunity I came across with a partner of mine, served in the military, who created his own company in Saudi Arabia. And I was looking at that opportunity, but because of some of the parameters on the deferred retirement, I decided to wait on that.
mm-hmm.
So um, it's I could tell you right now, if this was the year I was turning 57, which is my minimum retirement age, because
Mm-hmm.
I have over 30 years, so that would have put me at 34. It's my plan the year I turn 55, God willing, is to step out December 31st.
Mm.
If this was that year and they came with that offer, look at here, your brother would have been like, "What? You gonna do what? I could take this early. I could go and sit on my tail, my butt until September and possibly December if I get a waiver and get
Right.
paid."
Right.
This is just like terminal leave when we're in the military. You try to get that job and still getting paid for the military, and then you can start this. Oh, look at here. And there's people in the agencies who've done it. You're saying, what? I could retire and you're going to pay
Right.
me? So think about that. We're
Right.
supposed to be saving money, but you're going to pay this person nothing. I mean, you're going to pay him to do nothing.
Bruh. They can miss me with the whole saving money thing
Nah,
because I there's
it's not because your records show that you haven't done that.
right.
Both
Right.
Musk,
I
when he had Zip, and he fired from that, and then PayPal, and he was about to get removed from that, but he had so much in shares and money that he shifted that to, at that time, Twitter, and was able to come into that.
Nah,
Um,
man.
so
And then I'm seeing stories about them these deportation flights with the C-130s with like 9 people on them and
yes,
you know what I mean?
it's matter of fact on that I wanted to cover that. Let me see. I have written something down. The Afghanis who had helped U.S. military
Oh.
forces,
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
they have stopped their paperwork for
Oh,
because
what?
yes. And also, there is a write up where they say Trump is to revoke the legal status of 240,000 Ukrainians.
I was just getting ready to ask you about
Yeah.
him siding with Russia and versus the NATO versus Ukraine. As a veteran, how does that
Let me preface by saying number one, I never thought we should be doing any type of business with Russia. Let me get that out of
mm,
the way. I've never thought we
okay.
should. Number one.
Okay.
Number two, I never thought we should be doing any type of business with China.
Mm,
Before, if you looked at from the 80s, we had a relationship as far as for products. They were coming out of India.
okay.
A lot of people in tech, software people, they coming out products created. It was India during that time period. Then it switched to
Mhm.
China because what businesses are going to do, we are in a capitalistic society. They are going to get the cheapest labor force that they can get so they can maximize profits on their product.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. But um, I think everyone should be really take politics out. If you
Mhm.
really call yourself a patriot, everybody needs to start paying attention with everything going on with Putin. We really need to start paying attention. That
You
little
know,
statement from Nikita Khrushchev back in the late 50s, where he said we will take down the U.S. without firing a shot. People need to really start paying attention to that.
here's the thing though. I think I don't think it's a matter of not paying attention. I think just those who are just going so hard for this, I think there's a segment of the population that accept it willingly.
Yeah.
And furthermore, one, I have to I'm gonna make this statement, but a lot of people when I say this, they're not listening, and at first they think that I'm being negative. But I'm gonna say that someone deserves their props for, I guess, the long game that they played because they did it with excellence, right?
Yeah.
They played the long game
Yeah.
and it's coming to fruition. It started decades ago. It's it's props. You did it,
It's
right?
it's
And
called ideological subversion. Please look
okay.
that up, brother. And
Yes,
when I
sir.
read it,
Yes, sir.
ideological subversion. If you think about what's going on with the Palestinians and the Jews over there, where they took over 15 years to infiltrate pager companies to plant bombs in those pagers for that one time to set them off.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah,
that's
that's
patience.
that's the long game.
That's the
Now,
long
here's the
game.
thing though. This is, you know, this goes all the way back to the art of war,
Mm.
right? And the story
Sun Tzu.
of how, right, Sun Tzu,
Sun Tzu. Sun
where
Tzu. Sun Tzu.
Sun Tzu, how, the story of, I guess, uh, how did they say, sterilizing the women of the enemy such that they could not reproduce over time. And so we're going to lose now, but next generation, we got you, right? Because you won't have any men to defend you. And so that is that's some diabolical patience right there. And I think that, you know, think about, again, us growing up, man. Think about how um, television programming has changed and what it has done to our community, right? Just the media, television programming, how it has dumbed us down, and it is causing, not only dumbed us down, but look at the imagery that is happening to our males, black men imagery. I tease my wife. I tease my wife all the time, and she's going. She knows if when she listens to this, she knows I tease her all the time because I don't watch TV
Neither do I.
unless she's watching something and I come sit down or whatever.
Yeah.
And she likes to watch these. I tease her about these shows that have these heart pounding action, like all of these action shows, right? And then I tease her because I'm like, okay, where are the strong black characters? And when we look at those, the strong black women are subservient to some white dude married to a white dude. The males are, you know,
That's why I
are part of
never
the.
finished that series with my sister. What is her name? What's the name of that? Everybody was on it. I didn't even watch it when it was going on.
Was
Oh gosh, Kerry Washington.
oh yeah, yeah. The president,
Yeah,
the fixer or something
yeah.
or
I was
other,
watching that with
whatever.
my wife, and I didn't make it to the end because, and here's the reason why. I
Uh-huh.
didn't like how they were playing the sister.
Yeah,
I had to
yeah.
stop watching it. I did not finish the series. I I hated how they were trying to play her. But I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So no,
Yeah,
no, no. You're right on point.
yeah,
And so these current, because like there's one with I don't know, something 911. Angela Bassett is on there.
yeah.
I'm like, how you got the queen, right? So her ex ends up being, part of the alphabet community. She's now with this white dude, you know what I mean? And then all the black women are, in some form of either subservient to a white dude or alphabet community. And then the black men are all, right? They're all part of the community. And so it's like the strongest characters on these shows don't look like us, right? Angela Bassett, come on, man, that's like Queen, right? She's supposed to be,
That's
you know,
why Black Panther went over so well because of the positive images.
right.
I was having this conversation with someone, and I said, when Obama was elected, I was under no aspirations that a lot of things were going to be done for our community because, as the saying goes, before you're elected, you're selected. And Donna
Mm-hmm.
Brazile,
Mm-hmm.
who was a Democratic strategist, she confirmed that. I saw an interview many years ago where she said, before you saw him, and I think it was in the 2004 convention when he gave that speech and came on the scene, he had been chosen a few years before that. She said that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Before that
Right.
speech, she said that. But what I said to this individual, I said, my boys were at the age, they were younger, they were like 8 when he first got elected. To see, remember what I talked about before, your eyes, your senses, to see that image
Mm-hmm.
of that brother who is articulate, which a lot of people think that none of us could put two sentences together, but to see
Mm-hmm.
him articulate, to have that flow about him, have that diddy bop about him that we saw. I think
Right.
those two comedians did a thing where he was going down the line shaking hands, and he was the brothers or whatever, he would come and give him the dap, and then if it was a white person he would just
Yeah.
stand over, shake their hand. But
Key and Peele.
yeah,
Yeah.
Keenan Peele.
Yeah.
But to see how he carried himself, how he conducted himself, how he can, when he went in and debated the Republican Congress and he just demolished them. When he was on the
Mm-hmm.
debate stage, he demolished them, except for the first debate against Mitt Romney. Uh, that image was good for them. Anyone their age and anyone a few years older than them. And then you saw Trump and saw what occurred there. Then you saw Biden. Now that generation is seeing Trump again. So to get that image of him, I think that was the most important thing. Whether you
Yeah.
agree with politics or what he didn't get this for us or he didn't get, I think the most important thing was for young, especially young black men and young women, to see that positive image of that black man. I think that
Right.
was very paramount and very important.
You know what's unfortunate though is look at how many years ago that was, right? Because time flies,
Yeah.
right? And so now, where's the image now? Where's the imagery now? And you know, even if you watch just the media, not even the shows, but like the news media, right? Where are the where they at? Right? Like where's the strong black anchor, male anchor that and before I get canceled, I'm not, it is what it is, but one who's not part of the alphabet community. Is there one, you know?
Well, they got him off. What was it? Lamont Mark Hill. He wasn't an anchor, but he was a contributor, and
Right,
he
right, right.
he stated his opinion, but
And
they moved him
right.
off. They moved him
Hey,
off. So
I mean, they even went and got my girl Joy Reid, and you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's just
it's just we're going to keep doing what we need to do. And I saw this guy. He was part of this Project 2025 thing. He said this. Since you opened the door, I'm gonna say this.
right on.
Um, for the last probably 10 years, they said by I think it's 2040, 42, that the white population is decreasing and they're going to be a minority in this country. On the world scale, they are already a minority. He stated that this revoking of immigration status, moving people out the country, it will help slow down the time. This is him saying this, a white man. This will slow down the time of them becoming the minority. Because once they become the minority, they will no longer have control. That's what he said.
Mm.
Uh,
Okay.
so if that is the case and that the population is decreasing, which I believe it is, I don't believe the census as it stands. I think our numbers are higher, my personal opinion, because most black folk aren't taking a census. Maybe the people that you would expect to take it, maybe you or me, but I've only taken one census in my life.
Mm. Okay.
I believe the numbers are larger. I don't have nothing to. It's just a
Right.
feeling
Right.
that I
Okay.
have. I think the numbers are larger because when you say 2042, that's not that's less than 20 years.
But here's the thing, though. Remember the long game,
Yeah,
right? And so, even mathematically, if the numbers shift, if what makes up the numbers is weakened, then that doesn't matter either.
true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so one of the things that I very rarely do on this podcast is I very rarely speak on alphabet stuff and any of that stuff, right? And my stance on that is this. I don't speak on it because when I speak opinion, those who don't agree with it will call it homophobic. And that is not the case at all. I don't fear
yeah.
anything,
Phobia, that means a
right?
fear of
Right.
something. That's what phobia means.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm not I'm not afraid of anything. I'm simply stating a fact that, when it comes to imagery, that, the argument I get a lot of times is why should it matter sexual orientation if the person is good at what they do? Okay. We're not disputing whether or not they are good at what they do. Don't blend the two things. I simply asked, where's the representation of someone who looks like me that is a strong image on TV? And every time there is one, they do away with them. That's indisputable. So it's not about a phobia. It's not about hating. It's not about none of that. I said what I said, and that is what it
it
is.
is what it
And
is.
so, right. And so, but where I started with the imagery, right? Because, I mean, if we just went back down memory lane, you can name characters that you saw up until a certain decade, and then they just were gone. And then they started trickling off, and then silence, and then bang, Obama comes on the scene. So we get 8 years of an image. Bang, he's gone. Who's next? Where they at? Right? Where are they? And so that's kind of where we are. Oh well, Black Panther, right? That was that was a
That was
that was a,
powerful.
it was powerful, and it was an injection that lasted for a good little while. But then now we're back to this. Where are they at? Right? The movies don't come out but once every so many years, and who knows what's coming next. But there's no constant. But I can tell you what is constant. It ain't us,
No.
right? And if you try to move against that, you get canceled. You get moved to the side.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
yeah, I think that's where people like you, people like me, you have to stay out front. You have to continue to rear up your boys away. You got to look at uh, the powers that be and who's pushing that image.
Mhm.
Uh, And one reason why I don't watch a lot of TV, I watch more podcasts, a lot of sports podcasts, or uh, I'll go online. There's a documentary channel, Wealth documentary, I watch on YouTube because it just it'll deal with engineering things and just a whole slew of things. More
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
uh, a science mechanical type of thing. That's the stuff that I watch.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
I don't watch shows. If I do watch a show, it's something like you said. I'll sit down with my wife. The probably the number one station in this house is HGTV,
Mm.
and
Okay.
we'll probably watch that. Or I'll watch some sporting events. And even to this day, I really must watching them sports from football to basketball don't even start until probably the playoffs. I don't even watch March Madness until
Right. Right.
because it's
Right.
just the quality of play. I just don't. I think this year I've probably watched more football than I watched in the previous 10 years. So um, I think I'm on a journey of probably gaining knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
um, re-educate myself, learning why this climate is the way it is. Trying to get different perspectives and just moving like that, man. Try to my youngest son he's an avid reader.
Okay.
And if you want to debate him, you better be coming with some facts because he will hit you with facts. I learned that
Okay.
last year, and he made me take a look at myself. I said, well, maybe I need to start looking at some of these books and start doing a little bit more reading because he shut me
Mm.
down.
Oh. Okay.
He shut me
Right on.
down. So I think they're ready. I think they could stand toe to toe with anybody and debate politics, religion, society. They're ready because they're well informed. They're travel. They have diverse friend groups. So I think they're ready. I don't worry about that aspect of them. Uh, but you are right. We have always been a subject of attack because that's fear. Um, they feared Malcolm, Evers, King. It's fear because we know the story. The quote where Harry Belafonte went to Martin and he's like, why you so melancholy? And I'm paraphrasing. Why are you so melancholy? Because I'm afraid I'm integrating our people into a burning house because their moral standard has went out the door.
Right.
And that statement holds true. It really does. Uh, and
Man, I tell you, man, what's so one of the things that troubles me the most is think about us coming up the DMV, PG County, whatever,
yeah,
right? There are some things that are happening today in high school that would never fly back. that would just that would just never fly back then. And what's happening too is I recall going to my sons. One was in the band, one was on the field, football game. And some foolishness was happening in the stands, right? Well, stands slash cheerleaders, right? I say some foolishness. Yeah, somebody's gonna hate on it, whatever. But when I saw this young man prance out with these cheerleaders, right? I was like, I had to. My mind wouldn't accept it at first. I was like, nah, that ain't. I'm not seeing that.
yeah.
But here's what happened: the student body in the stands were cheering this dude on as he was, because evidently he was hitting all the moves and all. They were just cheering him on. I'm like, when I was in high school, bruh, that just
It wouldn't happen because they would be on you from the time you walk through the door to the time you walked out. We had to develop very thick skin growing up. Different people call it different. We called it joning. They would
Right.
joan on you. They would joan on you, and kids from that era, they were relentless. They would not let anything go. And
They call it bullying now.
yeah, it's called
Right.
bullying. You had to develop thick skin, and you had to learn how to throw those hands.
Oh man.
And it is what it is. That's just how it is. But now it's more so you can't bully, and I'm not for any kid being pushed around or bullied. But I think because of that era, you had to learn how to deal with things quicker. Um, you had to develop a sense of confidence within self. Um, and that's one thing I tried to explain to my son, when he was, when your kids are trying to find their way. I said, I wish I could give you what I had. I remember when I got that confidence. I remember it was like I was 12 years old, and this dude, he was joining on me, older kid, and he was teasing me. I started to cry. Now, I wasn't crying because he's hurting my feelings. I was crying because I wanted to get at him, and I knew I couldn't because obviously he was bigger than me, and there's
Right.
nothing I could do.
Right.
I said, I told my son, I said, this is the last time somebody made me cry. I said, and you got to learn from that point on. I said, when I walk in a room, an interview, whatever it is, I feel I'm that dude in the room, whether I'm the one who is the poorest, maybe not the most handsome, but I always have that confidence. Not because I think I'm all of that, because it's something that comes from inside of me. That I look at you, I'm a man just like you are. You put your pants on just like I do. And I don't think you are any better than me. And I'm saying I'm better than you, but I'm a man and you can see me. That type of thing.
Right. Right.
So
Well, yeah, that's where we are, man. So, um, listen, listen, we've been going at it for a minute now, and as always, man, I greatly appreciate your insights. I thank you so much for this. We got to do it again because we there's some other things I want to talk about.
oh we
So,
can. And like I said, pray for some of these federal workers, man, because as I said,
ooh,
you guys on the outside are not getting the full story. It's
look,
think about it.
I'm a federal worker too.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
one. Yeah.
So think about. I remember when my boys both were in school at the same time. I'm paying our mortgage, paying both their rent. Now you lose your position, your job, because of nothing that you didn't do. That can set families in a tizzy. That is
Right.
it's I don't know. It's an awful place to be, and I can't imagine a billionaire dude from South Africa, an Africana, who came up in that apartheid way of life. Can you imagine that? I mean, when you giving out, hey, you can come to our country. This is called a gold visa. You just pay $5 million. But no rich person is taking that on, because then they're going to have to come out and pay the taxes that we got paid. They're going to Dubai or Monaco where they don't got to be paying all these taxes. They ain't buying on that. They could still come to the U.S. and buy real estate, buy property. The U.S. is for sale. So anyway.
Yeah, man. It's that's a whole yeah. But yes, you're right. As far as the federal workers, man, we are in some troubling times. Still a couple of years out myself.
Yeah.
Trying to reach that age. Just a couple, a little less than a couple, but just a couple. And the thing is, though, it shouldn't even have to come to that, right? We shouldn't even have to be worrying about that type of stuff. But definitely praying for all of us as federal workers and the ones that have already been let go.
Yeah.
That, the stories are heartbreaking. And especially the ones who made provisions, uprooted their families, moved to new states, and only to be let go when they got there.
Yeah.
It's just sad. So, with that said, again, brother, I appreciate you, man.
Appreciate
Thank you so much. And let's do it again soon.
Hey, only a text or a phone call away, brother. Just give
Yes,
me a
sir. I
heads up.
appreciate you, man.
All right, you too.
All righty.
Take care.